What
Oh,
do?
I'm just going to ask you about Bucky. You can tell me about Bucky again.
Yeah, I mean Bucky. Like I said, Bucky's absolutely fine. Bless him. He's
I love
on
him.
the road to recovery
The road
after
Bucky.
I poisoned him for not getting the Drive to Survive. The Drive to Survive, not getting the podium right, not predicting the winners in Australia.
Oh, mate. Maybe it was a time difference.
Maybe, yeah. Who knows? Or maybe he predicted the wrong year.
Well, yeah,
Who
or the
knows?
wrong race.
Yeah,
Lance Stroll could still get that podium.
he could do.
He could do.
But one thing Lance Stroll can't get is an appearance on the 107 podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I'm kidding, Lance. You're very, very welcome.
I'd love to have Lance on.
Yes, that'd be genuinely brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Anyway,
feel for him because he's actually a good racer and he gets a lot of shit because he's from a rich family.
because of daddy's money, essentially.
Yeah.
But
But,
I mean,
I ask anyone that's into Formula One, if you're in his position, would you do it?
it's not even a question. It's also very interesting, obviously, like Lance Stroll, he's been around the sport for years, and so is Lando Norris. And Lando Norris's dad is also pretty well off as well. And I remember like a story coming out of him years ago. He was the only one in his like junior category that had a personal chef. So it's there's quite a few drivers that are like quite well off and that have got into the sport. So
the only ones that I know that really came from humble beginnings is Lewis and Esteban.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know about, and the rest have some form of sponsorship and stuff like that, and maybe Fernando probably a little bit, but I know he brings a lot of sponsors as well.
Yeah.
But Lance, if you're listening, my so random chance, you're welcome to come on the podcast.
You're welcome. You're officially invited, but only if you come for episode. What's the driver number? 18.
What is Lance Stroll's number? That's good.
It's 18, right?
You're invited, Lance, but we don't know your racer number.
No, he's only invited for episode 18, or he's not allowed. I'm pretty sure he's number 18, right? Or am I going mental?
I'm trying to find a picture now. Yeah, he's number 18.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so Lance, you're invited on for episode 18, specifically.
Boom. Got it.
Fernando's allowed whenever, but I mean, you're...
It would have to be 14 for Fernando.
Yeah, exactly, which is coming up soon. Or episode 33.
Well, I was literally going to say 33. We missed Max. You got number 1.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. No, Max would be 33 though.
Max would be 33. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
We could have Max and Alonso on the same pod.
I mean, you know what? They're practically the same person.
Yeah, essentially. Do you know who genuinely I think would make it like if you had to pick two Formula One drivers to come on the pod at the same time? I'm probably actually going to go with Fernando and Carlos.
Fernando and Carlos. No, I would say Fernando and Max because I just think they view racing in a completely different way.
Yeah, I guess so.
They're just obsessed with racing, unhealthily.
Well, yeah, apparently, yeah. I saw it in a recent like response to, I think it was somebody's question. I think it was Crofty or something like that. Like, what do you do for your like relaxation and downtime and stuff like that? And Max was like, sim racing because it means I'm always ready. And I'm like, that's not.
That was the David Coulthard interview.
Coulthard, sorry, yes.
Yeah, it's like, what do you do away from the track? Race.
Race, yeah.
Like,
That's
Fernando,
actually.
what did you do when you were away from Formula One? I raced.
Yeah. I think obviously we have today's topic, which is going to be Drive to Survive, but we do actually have the Max Verstappen documentary to go through. I don't know whether or not you have access to it in the UK.
I'm sure there are ways to access it because it's RTL or something, and I've seen a few clips come out.
Viaplay for me in Denmark and also obviously like Netherlands and stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult in the UK, but I'll try and see. But yeah, because there's a few clips coming out, and I think the Ferrari strategy one.
Yeah, just brilliant. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Max Verstappen essentially took the mick out of the Ferrari strategy, which is just brilliant because he's saying what everyone's thinking. It just is funny. But yes, so today we're here to talk about Drive to Survive. We will probably cover the Max Verstappen documentary. I think it's episodic and it's being released like 2 episodes every week or something like that. So maybe we'll cover it once it's fully out. But today,
there are a few documentaries. Fernando has a documentary.
We should just review the documentaries and stuff like that, like as we go on.
Fernando has 2 actually.
Does Lewis have one?
So rumors are Lewis is doing something with Netflix.
Ooh, that could be interesting.
Yeah, the rumors where I don't know if they're going to follow him for a season or something like that, but there are rumors and murmurings that he's kind of doing his own documentary thing.
That would be pretty interesting, to be fair.
I think it'll probably. I think if any time they're going to do it, now would be a good time because obviously he's helping out with the filming of the Formula One film with Brad Pitt and Damson Idris. So just probably following him, meeting Brad Pitt, and talking about that could be quite interesting. So yeah, rumors are swirling that he's doing something possibly with Netflix.
Should be pretty interesting, to be completely honest.
Yeah, because we know Netflix and Drive to Survive is a hive of accuracy.
Yes, exactly. So speaking of a hive of accuracy, so obviously Drive to Survive is essentially a very dramatized version of events for Formula One. Essentially, and even then, it doesn't even cover half of the drama, which is insane when you think about it. But so we're now into the 5th season of Drive to Survive, so it's been around for quite a while. What are your sort of generic, sort of general thoughts around the series, like what it's done for the sport and all that fun stuff, and whether or not you think it should even continue?
Yeah, so I, like yourself, joined the sport way before Drive to Survive. So it's been interesting to see the amount of press and promotion and exposure it's got. So it's good in that it's given the sport a lot of exposure. It's brought in a lot of fans. I do feel sorry for, these Drive to Survive fans, that have been labeled that they're only there for certain reasons because they watch Drive to Survive and they don't know the sport. I think you shouldn't really gatekeep anything.
No.
But two things, just to summarize. I don't like the over dramatization and narratives and storylines that they tried to sell. With using fake team radios and camera angles, and it's not needed. That I think that's the annoying thing is, which leads on the second point, is that it's not needed. There's so much drama in the season, and Formula One is one of those rare sports where, despite all the PR stuff and the interviews that they do, you don't really get a look behind the scenes because it's super secretive. And I thought Drive to Survive could allow viewers into this is how we build the car, this is how drivers race, this is what a whole weekend looks like, this is all the contract negotiations and things like that, stuff that we don't see, and they just gloss over it to show fake team radios and fake, like Carlos and Lando's fake rivalry. Was that season 4 or season 3?
Season 3,
everyone,
I think,
even if you're a Drive to Survive fan and you watch the races, all the PR stuff that McLaren was putting out, it's like these guys are best friends and playing golf together and stuff.
They literally played golf together like 2 weeks ago. Like they're still best friends. Like it's ridiculous.
And that's what's annoying about Drive to Survive is and maybe the team's like, look, we don't want to show too much and we want to be super controlled, and the FIA or FOM is like, paint us in this light, we want to show this, and maybe Netflix have their hands tied. But it's like Abu Dhabi 2021, that in itself is like 3 episodes, right? And
it's
gloss over it.
It's also like at the end of the season, Sebastian Vettel, a 4-time world champion, arguably one of the greatest of all time, retired, and he didn't even get a single mention.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton in the previous season, in season 4, when Lewis Hamilton won his 7th title, it was very interesting how that was covered by about 2 minutes at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
The pacing for me is completely off. The topics are completely off. And I understand that it's, initially the first 1 or 2 seasons, it's to get people into Formula One, to maybe create a bit of drama and stuff like that. But we're going into, and I know that they are recording right now, the 6th season of Drive to Survive. We don't need this entry level schoolyard bullshit, quite frankly. You can cover the more interesting topics, and for the love of God, stop jumping around in timelines, because it is not helpful whatsoever. I understand that the typical audience for Drive to Survive is American and they can only understand one thing at a time. However, I'm pretty sure they can understand 2 different things happening at the same time, or how the flow of time works. Please just give up. Just do normal episodes. Just do rounds 1 to 5, rounds 5 to 10. Just do episodes like that, and then it would be so much better. It just would be. Like, it's not difficult.
Yeah, I totally get it, and yeah, the jumping around is very strange. But even like Max called out himself, so I'm not going to go on to Drive to Survive because you don't paint an accurate picture of and then that kind of makes drivers, team principals hesitant. Like, I don't want to be myself because they're going to take something out of context and stuff. Like, it could go really well, like the way of Gunther, or it could go the complete opposite, like the way of Lando and Carlos.
Yeah.
And then you could just be completely ignored. Maybe Sebastian wanted it. But honestly, the best episode I thought was Germany 2019. I think it was 2019, where they went behind the scenes of Mercedes when they had like the new livery and stuff. It's like, yeah, we've decided on the new livery and this is what we're doing. And they showed a little bit of the debrief with Lewis talking to Toto. It's like, I don't know what the fuck happened. And it kind of humanized Lewis, it humanized the team. And I thought, right, that's interesting because this is a guy who wins consistently, wins regularly, and still after like a bad race, it's like, shit, man, what the fuck happened? And that's the kind of stuff that's like, I can now connect with Lewis. I can now connect with that team.
Yeah.
As opposed to, what's being shown. It's like, this is not, especially for us, because we've come from the pre-Drive to Survive kind of explosion.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not right. This is yes, it's entertainment and it's sport. This is not reality TV, and that's what they've painted it as, a reality TV.
But they've done a really bad job of painting it as reality TV, if that's what it's supposed to be. It's like a mid between everything.
They tried to script it, and it's like, oh, this is be good. And like we've said this on every podcast, the amount of drama that happens. Like, the most interesting part for me for season 5 was Otmar, Oscar Piastri, and Zach Brown, and they barely scratch the surface with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been hammering Drive to Survive. What positives have you seen from Drive to Survive?
I liked seeing how good Otmar is at speaking multiple languages. It's so good.
They painted Otmar as like bumbling,
this like bumbling idiot. It's quite funny. It just is funny.
However you paint him, the guy heads up a Formula One team.
Yeah.
He's not a bumbling
idiot. No, of course
he knows
not.
exactly. And remember when they painted, and I don't know, this could be Lawrence Stroll as like
the big bad, like boss.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, is he really like that? I know you kind of have to be ruthless in his position, but is he really like that? Kind of.
I have a funny feeling that, obviously this is slightly off topic, I have a funny feeling that Mr. Stroll can turn it on when he needs to.
You don't get to his position by being a softie, but I
took the words out of my mouth.
He's as bad as people make him out to be, because he genuinely loves racing.
Yeah,
like he's in Formula One. Obviously, he wants Aston Martin to be successful, but he's in Formula One to win.
Yeah,
and he's in Formula One because he has a passion for the sport.
I think that there were rumours being thrown around last season that he was apparently very, very angry that Aston Martin car was awful at the beginning of the season, to the point where he was shouting at engineers. I think those were some of the rumours, allegedly some of the rumours. Yeah. So like I said, I think he can turn it on, but he knows when to turn it on and with the right people. You do not be as successful as Mr. Stroll and like not be able to control yourself and know how to deal with the right people at the right time. Like, for example, shouting at you, Ash, might get you to work a million times better, but shouting at me is the complete opposite way to do it. So it's different. Different strokes for different folks, right? So I think that but like, to paint him in that light, it was just very strange. Especially because you see him laughing and smiling on the grid with Toto.
Also, his son is in the team, right? And the last thing you want to do is make it difficult for your son. It's like, oh, we can't tell Lance the truth because Lawrence will go mad at us and say, we saw that relationship a little bit with Nikita and what was his father's name? The Mazepin,
the Russian man. No idea. Mr. Mazepin.
Mr. Mazepin. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot which Drive to Survive misses. What would you... So, you're Netflix. You're doing season 6. You've received feedback from 2 idiots on a podcast with 0 subscribers.
Hey, we have 7, thank you. Last time I checked, we have 7. And 2 of those, I think, is me.
I think I'm one as well.
Because I think I'm subscribed on Apple Podcasts and then on Spotify.
Listen, you got to be your own fan.
We do, yeah. We have to start somewhere,
Right.
right?
They're like, Mr. McQuillan, season 6, you've got free creative control. What are you doing with Drive to Survive? What are you showing? Assuming everything is FIA and teams are like, yeah, you can interview us and you can go behind the scenes of everything.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to single out a particular driver, somebody who is likable, somebody who is like humble enough that you can be on the same side as him, right? Someone like Yuki Tsunoda. And you literally follow him through testing and the lead up to the first race. So that what it does is it shows the effort and the training and stuff that you actually go through as a Formula One driver. It goes through all of the like the meetings and stuff like that, and it explains everything to show you just how much effort these guys actually go through. Like there's obviously that famous meme where Carlos Sainz is like, people don't realize how difficult it is to be a Formula One driver. Like, we don't have it easy. And Charles is like, no, mate, we have it easy. Like, this is like that meme. I think it would be it would be very interesting to see like one of the drivers. And again, I'm taking Yuki as an example, and to go through like almost get him to like debrief after each session in the car, like explain and almost talk to the camera and break that third wall in that sort of in that way, rather than like sitting down in a chair like they do all the time, and they like randomly cut to Christian Horner or something like that, and Christian's like, well, we spent $8 million over the budget on chicken wings or whatever, and it's like, no, we want to hear the roar of the sport. That's what we're here for, and follow that through, like, because it will give everyone an idea as to the sacrifice and the work and the ramping up that all of these drivers do into the new season. And I just think that would be a bit of an interesting take, because we've all seen like, oh, everyone's back, and now, oh, look at all the fancy cars and the grids, blah, blah, blah. Like, great, but at the same time, like, just dial it down a little bit and be a bit more raw with it. And then essentially, like I said, every episode would be like, if we've got 10 episodes and there are 23 races this year?
Yep.
23. So you'd make it like 2 to 3 races per episode. Obviously, if the first episode is all about the build up and lead up or whatever, then it might have to be 3. Again, I can't do maths, but essentially you would make that all like a couple of episodes, and then you'd have the storylines flow through the entire season, like you would do any other normal TV show. Like it just make it make sense. And to be completely honest, you need to stop making shit up, because I think for example, when we were just coming into the podcast and we were like, oh, we should talk about Max's thing, and then I'm like, oh no, why are we bothering to cover Drive to Survive? Because we have the whole Massa Hamilton drama, and Massa apparently trying to legally have that title like overturned, or the season's or whatever it is that Massa's trying to do. Don't think it's going to go very well, but like there's so much drama, and we've been like not off the air, but we haven't had a race in like a week. Or like a few days essentially, and we already have like maybe an hour's worth of content to talk about. So how on earth are these Netflix producers just completely ignoring so much, that there's so much stuff to talk about that people actually properly care about? So just there's no need to make up storylines whatsoever. Keep it raw.
I guess it's also
and
annoying
simple.
for the drivers when they see someone like Daniel. It's like, well, he gets to show his authentic self, and look how popular he's become and stuff. But Lando's getting painted as this kind of picture, and Mick is painted like this, and Sebastian is just not painted at all, kind of thing. If Sebastian's like, hey, I don't want to do it, but it's like, hey, okay, you don't have to do it, but maybe you can talk about the stuff that you're doing outside of Formula One with Save the Bees and your environmental stuff and stuff like that. It's like, hey, if you don't talk about Formula One, but let's let's work with you. And I think what I would like to see is similar to what you've said about ramping up and leading up, but also there's so much in Formula One we just don't know about, right?
True.
We don't know how the FIA works and how FOM works, and this is how Miami wants to come on the circuit. This is what they have to present, and this is how we grade circuits and stuff like that. It's just like, okay, come with us, and this is how the team essentially comes up with a new concept of a car, and is interviewing people like Adrian Newey and Dan Fallows, and stuff like that. It was like there's just so much to form because it's always talked about as an engineering sport as well. And
It's a
if they
team
can-
sport. It is a
Yeah,
team
and if
sport.
they can talk about the engineers, but you know, not saying dumb it down, but like,
Yeah.
hey, explain some of the stuff that people don't understand. Because like, you talk about thermal degradation in tire and wear and stuff like that. So I'm new to Drive to Survive. It's like, oh, why is that car kind of on its tires and stuff like? You don't have to tell us the secrets behind why, but we're saying, oh, because it doesn't slide as much, or it doesn't do X, it doesn't do Y, we can do this, stuff like that. There's just so much that
Yeah.
they miss out. It's like, let's fake drama, and I think that's what's really annoying. It's like that you have a lot there. You have a lot there. Now, if they've got their hands tied by teams and FOM, then I understand the kind of working within boundaries, but there is so much there.
Just for the podcast, by FOM you mean
Formula One management.
Yeah, cool. Just so the podcast.
Yeah, and FIA. So FOM, if you don't know, is a commercial aspect of the sport, which is Liberty Media, and FIA is Federation International Automobile, which is
they're like the judges,
and they're like these are the rules and stuff like that. So
cool.
Yeah.
And so it's also like just from you talking, it would be very interesting to how the Formula One teams randomly during the season they're like, oh, by the way, like even just 2 weeks ago, you had Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris go off to Imola to drive season before's car, so the car that won there back in 2020, and actually do some circuit testing and have time in the car, and they both had about a day. Yeah.
They won Imola 2020?
2021, sorry.
No, they won Monza.
Monza, sorry. Jesus Christ. Sorry, they went to... Sorry.
They went to... The country was right.
Yeah, the country was right. I was just slightly off by about 100 kilometres. But yeah, so they went to Monza, and they drove the Monza winning car, and they both had about a day in the car itself. I believe it was Piastri's birthday. Go and follow that for the day. It's not part of the actual sport, but obviously it's part of it in a way, because you're seeing the drivers in a slightly more relaxed environment. They're still driving the car, and you're going right, so why McLaren, why are you doing this test? Oh, we're doing it because we get time in the car, and it doesn't come out of the budget cap because we're doing this for media stuff. So it's great. It's great for the lads to get some experience, especially Oscar, who's never raced at this track before or never raced in a Formula One car. Just talk about that sort of stuff, and talk about just the role that everyone plays. Also during these two testings, we're going to be testing new pit procedures. We're going to be testing new guns. We're going to be doing whatever it is. This is why we're doing this, and this is how the teams warm up every morning. And this is and I understand that it won't be for everyone, but now you've done 5 bloody seasons.
You don't even have to make a whole episode about it.
No.
As well. What I would really like to see is race control and TV direction. So how the stewards, how do they know when something happens? What camera angles are they looking at? What feeds are they getting through? How many? You've seen some pictures, and there's loads of people there. What do they all do? Things like that. And then
why don't we have an episode where the FIA or FOM probably meet with Pirelli to discuss how the new tyres are going, and discuss the tyre tests and what they want out of the tyres for the next season or whatever it is?
Because if they're people don't understand how penalties are handed out and decisions are made, and that's gonna because obviously the FIA are getting a lot of hammering at the moment post the red flags, and it's well, this is why we make the decisions, this is the information we get, and this is what we do. Because we don't have access to that information, we will just make a judgment based on what we see. We don't have full information. It's the FIA are doing this, they're doing that, and it's well, no, if you see all the information that we get, this is why we pulled out safety cars, because the GPS, showed that Lance was here and he was actually here. That's why we do what we do. I reckon it would go so much. It would give them that positive PR that they need. And it's they've got a really hard job, right? They've got a really, really hard job. And so, yeah, I think that's what really annoys me about Drive to Survive. And I think that's what's starting to annoy people who've come in through Drive to Survive and go through the season. It's there's a lot here. There's so much potential for a great show. Don't go down the way of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah, bare minimum for me is literally just stop banging on with these fake storylines.
Yeah, that is it.
And make it chronological. Those are the only two things you have to do. Do those two things and we're good. Like, you really don't have to do a lot else. Just carry on doing what you're doing. Don't tell the fake storylines. You can and just keep it chronological, and people would be more happy. That's it.
Yeah.
And have Will Buxton pop in and say, if you win, you win. Great, cheers, Will. Back to F1 TV for you, and then that's it. Brilliant.
Yeah, and the thing is, if they do it like that, if they're authentic and they're real, Max will be like, I want to do the season.
Well, he was back this season briefly.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
But this is where it's like you could follow Max and you see all the sim racing he does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like that because he says, "What do you do outside of the track?" I go racing. And he's doing Le Mans. Is it 24-hour Le Mans he was doing, and he got kicked off or something?
Because the event organization was pretty bad, as far as I could tell. I didn't really pay too much attention to it, but it didn't seem particularly good.
Yeah, so there's a lot there that they could do, and yeah, it's frustrating. And it's also funny. It's the non-scripted moments which are like the hilarious parts. Where where they were following Fernando for a little bit. And the guy goes up to Fernando and goes, "Look at what you caused when you moved to Aston Martin." He goes, "No, it wasn't me, it was Seb."
It was, yeah.
Look what you did. That was Seb.
It wasn't me, yeah.
Yeah, and like people think like Alonso is this hard character. He's disruptive, difficult to work with, but he's never come across like that, So yeah, and look at what he's doing now. He's being his authentic self on TikTok, doing those memes, and people are like, Alonso.
I do credit some of his success actually to the Aston Martin social media team. They are knocking it out of the park every single week, with content. And I do give them quite a lot of credit for actually giving like Fernando a little bit of a push this year on social. I think their social media manager's gone to Fernando and gone, "Oh, we could have some fun," and he's gone, "Yeah, all right, sure, that sounds like a great idea." Like,
I'm sure that's the stuff that they want to do, so the PR, high quality images all the time, and it wasn't our race, but we'll be back again. Like you see it all over footballers' Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, for example, when the McLaren admin sits the boys down and he points camera at them and goes, "Right, talk about the race now," and they're like, "Yeah, well, it was really difficult and blah 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 and whatever." But then you've got the Aston Martin manager filming them stirring a pot and then just going, "Let them cook now, let them cook." Like, it's just so much more entertaining. Like,
and I'm glad that teams are taking it on. Mercedes are doing it now, where they took the trophy off George.
I do.
People just like reacting to the memes and stuff like that.
I do. I'm pretty sure some of the Mercedes stuff a little bit boomer. A little bit at points. Like Aston Martin are knocking it out of the park every single week. Mercedes are doing pretty well as well. A little bit boomer style, a little bit. But I think the social media manager there, or the team there, are a little bit older. And I think that because they are so set up, they are 8-time world champions and stuff like that. They have their tone, and obviously Mercedes is like classy. You have to be a bit more respectful. Whereas Aston Martin, like they don't care. Like, just like, go for it. Like,
it's
absolutely fine.
You'd say Aston Martin is a more prestige brand.
True. Yeah, but I think that coming from like in the world of Formula One, they're still relatively new. The team's 2 years old, 3 years old. So
2 years old, yeah. So, and also if you look at the drivers that are popular, and I think if you look at Lando, he does Twitch streaming, right? And he's playing games with Max Verstappen. He's reacting to races and saying, "Oh, this is actually what happened," and that is what people love, right? Yeah. That's like, oh man, this is Lando actually saying this and doing his reaction to Drive to Survive and things like that. And I think that's what people want to see. Don't manufacture things.
Should we move on to the whole season? Like, we'll have a quick review of the season for our 7 listeners. 7 subscribers, sorry, I do apologise. We love every single one of you, even though 4 of them are us. So, episode 1 was kicking off like pre-season testing. It had the incredible shot of the Ferrari circling Sergio Perez at the end of turn 1 in Bahrain. Absolutely phenomenal filmmaking and editing, and that's something that Drive to Survive has done amazingly well in the past. Like some of the cinematography and everything, especially as a cinematography nerd myself, Some of it is just absolutely amazing. We also they also show off the Haas driver change as well, and like bringing in
I don't want to deal with Russians.
bringing in Kevin, and like the reunion, I guess, of that relationship and stuff like that. That was pretty cool as well. And yeah, it's sort of just like resetting and like setting everyone up for the rest of the season. And guess what? There were no chronological episode issues with that at all. Great episode. Can't knock it.
Yeah. No. Gunther is great. And they also humanize Mattia a bit more. You know, him and Gunther in the car at the start.
They do, yeah.
Talking about it and the winery and things like that. And it's like, I think people forget outside of the car and outside of circuits, they are real people. And, Gunther does his hiking and things like that, and showing that side of them is like, oh, they're not just someone who just talks on a camera kind of thing.
Yeah, it really does humanize them for sure. Yeah. And like, I'm sure that a lot of people would have been sat there going, I wouldn't mind going and, you know, growing some wine with Mattia. Like,
yeah. But then, I mean, and then obviously you get the complete opposite end where, like, is it Jerry Horner gets more screen time than Sebastian Vettel? It's like, yeah, we're showing Christian Horner's life and stuff like that. But
I do think part of it is obviously probably Seb just wanting to be very private.
Yeah, he's just like, I mean, he didn't join it. As Serge is like, Seb's on Instagram?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
He wasn't on Instagram for a while, and when he does post, it's like his history as a kid and stuff. But, I mean, as I mentioned before, you know, one of the standout moments of the season, I think it's episode 3, where the team principals have a meeting like porpoising.
Yes.
And I'm sure, like, obviously they know the cameras are there, but that's what we want to see. It's okay, when you get team principals together, what are you talking about?
It was in Canada, wasn't it? It was the Canadian Grand Prix, and they're talking about bringing in a regulation about, like, too much porpoising. It was Christian going, change your fucking car, like, and it was like, no, you change your car, because Checo was saying,
let's bring the drivers in. Go on,
you bring them in. Go on, I dare you. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. That's
and it's
sort of
stuff
stuff
like
that we
that.
want
It's
to see.
like, oh, right. So this is, you know, the stuff that is discussed in a team. And like, you don't have to show it, because I'm sure there's like, look, we want to talk about things that we don't want on camera, but you can just, right, when the team principals get together, this is when it happens. This is what they discuss. These are the outcomes. This is what they relate to each other and race control and things like that. But
I think episode 2 was pretty good, actually, in sort of showing the Mercedes trouble and asking the question, do you think that Lewis will retire at the end of the year? Like, especially, and I think they covered, like, George saying, like, oh, like, the travel's quite a lot this year, isn't it? Or something like that. There was a comment. It might not have been that from that episode specifically, but, like, the travel obviously being a lot, and, like, is there something that Lewis still wants to do? And it raised that question, obviously, in a car, which, you know, isn't great. And I think that was a pretty good sort of narrative to have, but again, it could have been a narrative that was spread over a few different episodes. It could have, you know, gotten the real low in Barcelona, where like he was like, oh, you know, I think we should just, you know, retire the car and like save the engine type thing. That wasn't mentioned in the entire series as far as I can remember. But why couldn't you have used that? That shows that an athlete is just very nearly just gave up.
Yeah, and you had the great battles at the start with Max and Charles, which just wasn't touched on, because in episode 2 they kind of just jumped to Azerbaijan and Silverstone.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, whoa, we're going like halfway through.
Why do we need 3 episodes on Silverstone?
Yeah, and one of the things that's really annoying is they didn't really touch. Well, I mean, not touch is probably the wrong word. Like, obviously they showed Drew's crash. But they're not talking about like, this is how he was saved and this is why the car flipped in the way it did, and
that would have been a really good thing to have somebody analyze it specifically and be like, right, okay, so here's what happened. Like, you know, when Sky go through and explain like, right, so what happened is he tried to get through the gap between these 2 cars, and then his front wheel clipped this or whatever. I can't remember specifically which wheel clipped what or whatever happened, but that would have been pretty interesting. And then they could have gone, and so when he actually rolled over and he's spinning round like a
Yeah.
spinning top on his head. The reason
Yeah.
why he's able to survive is because of the halo, and the halo is doing this, this, and this. And like this was designed to withstand 3 times the weight of a Formula One car. And like when he flipped up, this is the reason why we have the catch fencing, because that fence is built to withstand 800 kilos of Newton meters of force or whatever it is. Like, and explain it properly as to how you kept the fans safe as well. Like that would have been really, really interesting to actually discover. And then you could have sat down with George, and you could have had George like replay the events in his head, or like speak about them and explain his process, because obviously he got out of the car to try and help Zhu.
Yeah.
So like there's so many ways that you could have tackled that.
You can speak with the stewards and say, all right, this has happened. What are you trained to do? What do you do? You could speak with the FIA medical staff.
Yeah.
So when this crash happens, we have this set procedure. We bring him in, we airlift him to there, we run these tests and everything like that. And, you know, he was safe because of his helmet and the roll hoop. And, you know, although it looked kind of crazy, the gravel trap, you know, flipped him. It actually slowed him down, and the catch fence, you know, although it was very dangerous for the spectators, saved them from, you know, a car just smashing into them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So again, it's just like, that's the interesting part, you know. That's the, and they just it's missed opportunities. Missed opportunities. And like you said, back to Silverstone for the 3rd time, and you know, Silverstone in episode 2, and so hang on, you know, hang on.
Yeah, this is like halfway through the season. Why on earth are we doing Silverstone right now? Like, yeah, it also like, but like you could even go into like you said, like you could go to the I don't know what helmet Zhu uses, by the way, but you could Bell or whatever it is, you could go and be like, right, this is what makes up an actual helmet. Like, and it doesn't have to be like a 30-minute segment. It can be like
it doesn't have
30 seconds, and it can be like, right, so we force it with this. And so that it can withstand this impact, bam! You see his head hit the side of the car as he's being flipped over, and like we designed it so that this wouldn't happen, so it wouldn't shatter. And then you see the car roll over, and then it hits on the top, and then the FIA come in and go, right. So we need the hoop to be introduced in whenever it was introduced. I can't remember, 20. When was the Halo introduced?
I believe it's
18.
18,
whatever it was, but they like as soon as it hits over, that bam, you can add a sound effect. It's just like the Halo saved his life, and it was give a little bit of information around that, and like that would be pretty interesting. Also, what would be pretty interesting as well, because the week before Silverstone is you could have the build up. You could talk about Goodwood Festival of Speed. You could have potentially a few minutes on Lando driving Senna's McLaren at Festival of Speed. You could have George, who was also at Festival of Speed as well. You could talk about the build-up. You could be like, how are you feeling about it? That sort of thing. Like, there are so many missed opportunities that they just don't seem to cover whatsoever.
Yeah, because remember when the Roman had his crash, and then Sky Sports, like Martin Brundle sat down and was like, talk us through every single step of that crash. And you know, they could do something similar, but yeah, it's a little bit frustrating.
There was can you imagine how cold this would have been, right? There was a quote I can't remember, I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, but Bird Mylander.
No, I think you said that right. Yeah,
did I?
That's
Perfect.
what we hear. That's
Who's
what
obviously
Martin
the
said,
safety. He is the safety car driver for Formula One, or was during the Abu Dhabi incident.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a quote that came out from him where he got out of the car at the end of the infamous lap and walked through the garage and sat at the back of the garage and said to himself, "What the hell have I just witnessed?" Can you imagine how cold it would have been to have him sat at the back of the garage in the dark somewhere almost, with holding his helmet, just sat hunched over on the ground, like just shaking his head or something like that, as you hear the commentary come over the top being like, and he's won it, Max Verstappen is champion of the world in these circumstances, like these like this will be reviewed, like blah blah blah, and like having all of those controversial like echoing through like the head. He's just sat there going, what the fuck just happened? Can you imagine how cold some of those scenes could have actually been? Like, well, I'm not saying that the footage exists, and there's no way that the producers could have, but you could, Netflix, you could have recreated
sat him down, and you could have talked to him, and you could have. It's like you said, like one of the defining images was Sergio Perez walking and the two Ferraris going around it, right?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, wow, is this for the season? And then, you know, you look at the end of the season, it's just Max. It's just smashed
dominating.
it.
Yeah, absolutely dominating.
So, like if you want to tell a story, that's great. Tell a story in the cinematic way, like you're saying, but tell the right story. You know, there's no need to make it up. But I thought Yuki's episode was quite good. You talked about like following someone. Following Yuki was again I look at a driver. I think there must be like peak physical fitness, driven. And so you can say,
I don't like exercising. It ruins my whole day.
You know, you know, and even Alonso is saying, you know, you have the hero and you have the anti-hero. You know, and he's like, he's well aware that people think he's the anti-hero. He's like,
and he's like, I don't care. I'll own that.
Yeah, exactly. And now people are like, Alonso gotta get his 33rd win.
Yeah.
And you know, it's. Yeah, I think my favorite season was, I believe, season 2. I think.
What was
it? Was it was the episode where they followed Mercedes at the German Grand Prix. I think that season overall was quite good. But while it's good, it's an overall, it's an okay show. It shows behind the scenes. It's not what I thought it was going to be. Will I watch it? Of course I'll watch it. I'm a Formula 1 fan. Just get those little bit nuggets of information, find the memes. But I do hope that they try to be more accurate in the future.
Let's hope so. I don't think there's any guarantee whatsoever. But like I said, let's hope so, because you never know.
Yeah. Any stand-up moments for you in the season or previous seasons?
I felt like obviously the goodbye to Daniel was quite nice, because obviously he was their poster boy like all the way from season 1, and that's absolutely fine. And obviously he featured very heavily. I did quite like seeing the reaction of Mick and his mum and his sister when he scored his first points at Silverstone. That was pretty good. Very wholesome moment, even though obviously he lost the seat to Hülkenberg. But it was still nice to see. I also thought that the transition of Christian Horner going shooting and then shooting the clay pigeon and then the firework at Bahrain is arguably one of the most beautiful and disgusting transitions I have ever seen in my entire life. And every time it pops up on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, I will watch it 2 or 3 times, because it is absolutely phenomenal. It just is. And like I said, some of the cinematography and stuff like that, beautiful. You can't knock it. Like, it's in 4K, it's in slow motion, the sun is like the lighting is perfect, and you just have like the reflections glinting off of the windows of these cars going through the pit lane or like something like that. Like, it is very, very captivating for sure. I don't know if I have like any like specific episodes or anything like that I'm like, oh yeah, this was a good episode or anything. But I think as a whole, it is something that I will watch every single time. And I think if they were to, let's say for example, they announce tomorrow, season 6 will be the last season of Drive to Survive. I think a lot of people would be happy, but I think a lot of people after a season or 2 would actually really miss it. And it's one of those things where it's just like everyone loves to hate it a bit, you know? Everyone loves to be like, it's actually, this is absolute rubbish. Like, how could they? But also, we're gonna watch it anyway.
We trashed it, and I'll watch it next season.
I'll watch it next season. Yeah, I mean, admittedly, I don't pay for Netflix anymore, because I don't use it enough. I just used to rewatch Brooklyn Nine-Nine and watch Drive to Survive when that came out, and that was it. But I will pay for a month and definitely not create a new email the next time the Drive to Survive comes out, because it's something that I will try and watch, and it's something that is essential viewing for anyone who has a Formula 1 podcast, but also is anyone who is like a decent Formula 1 fan will watch it, because there is extra bonus content in there for sure.
It's that behind the scenes that people are clamoring for. That right, that's a team principal meeting, and that's a debrief, and that's fitness tests and stuff. And but I think what it's done also is, if you've noticed now, a lot of the YouTube channels for the teams have now saying, hey, let's have a factory tour. And Mercedes are really good at this, and this is how this is done, and this is how this is done, this is how this is done. Aston Martin are doing it as well, and I think that's Drive to Survive has opened that up. Say, oh, people are interested here.
Mm.
We can do it through our own YouTube.
That reminds me, actually, I saw on LinkedIn today, because I am a very good professional person, and essentially I saw that Red Bull were advertising factory tours. I got curious. I clicked the link. How much do you think a Red Bull factory tour costs per person? Like for one ticket, it doesn't change the amount if you book for 10 people. You have to have minimum 6 apparently if you want to have some sort of factory tour. But on a public date, anyone can buy a ticket besides probably Toto. How much do you think the ticket would be?
£100.
You think it was £100
Yeah.
for a full factory tour?
I think anything more, it's all right. But I also know it's Formula One and things are overpriced.
Yeah, all right. So rethink your guess. How much do you think a factory tour at Red Bull in Milton Keynes costs?
Okay. £350.
£300.
Oh.
So on, I think it was May 5th. Hold on, let me quickly Google it. But they have it on their experiences. Anyone can do this and go and have a look. They have dates on, so they have a new date on the Friday the 5th of May, just launched. But they have availability on the 6th of October, 10th of November, and 4th of December. You can book, anyone can book, like I said, apart from probably Toto. There are no refunds, obviously, because why would there be? But it's £300. You select the date. And they do, admittedly, they do different events and stuff like that. So they do like there's something called the MK7 experience where you go and have a look at all of the winning cars and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting actually. And it's like an hour and a half tour. But like I said, factory tour for Red Bull, which takes 2 hours, yeah, you can turn up and have a quick look, and you actually get the MK7 event thing, which I just talked about, included. But yeah, it shows all of the like workings of the Formula One team and stuff like that. Like, absolutely brilliant. And I think that one thing that Drive to Survive has actually done, coming back to the original topic, one thing that Drive to Survive has really done is it's made some of these teams really think about their digital channels and what they do on YouTube and stuff like that. And the digital content that they're actually creating in a social media driven world, essentially. And I think it's a good thing. I think overall, Formula One Drive to Survive overall is a good thing for me personally.
Yeah. No, I agree. And also, I mean, I had a look. A lot of those dates are sold out as well.
Yeah, a lot of them are sold out.
People are buying those tickets.
People are going £300 to go and have a tour around Red Bull. Sure, yeah. That sounds like a good deal, mate.
If you've got the cash, spend it. So.
Honestly, if you really wanted to go on a factory tour, how much money are you paying? Like, how much are you going? Yeah, you know what? I'll pay £200 for that.
I would pay. I mean, it depends on what you see, and so I'd pay £150.
I'd pay £120 personally. Yeah. I think £120 for a I could be pushed to 130, but £120. You get a tour of the spaces with the race cars throughout the history. You then visit different departments, and it is designed to present the inner workings of the machine, taking in the various developmental stages all the way to the point where thousands of components are brought together in our race bays to create the latest Red Bull racing car. Depending on the date and timing of your visit, there may be engineers in the operations viewing area, important parts being created in machine shop, or race cars on the floor, either being stripped after the previous race or prepped for the next. You could also see where the race crew use our mock-up of the pit box and a mule vehicle for pit stop practice. So they do get pretty in-depth, to be fair. It might be nice actually to maybe even ask somebody who's been on one of these tours to actually tell us about what they saw, what their experience was like. That is, unless you've got Adrian Newey at the doors to getting everyone to sign an NDA, but probably not. So
I think that kind of thing being public, they would. Yeah, I think what they're showing is like, we're happy for. I mean, and again, a lot of the cars there, they probably take off things that could be.
Yeah.
It's like, your name sounds familiar. Do you work at the Ferrari Aerodynamics team?
Oh, I'm sure that they do like an in-depth like check of anyone who comes through, and they see like, oh, he signed up with a Ferrari email address. Like they're not going to let you in, type thing.
Yeah,
But,
no, actually, like
yeah,
it's a factory tour. It's just like, and you're probably not even like if they don't want to show you something, they won't show you something. So yeah, it's all carefully controlled.
Yeah,
So,
true.
yeah, but, I mean, yeah, it'll be nice. I'll be nice. Maybe one day.
But yeah, all right. Well, there we go. That's I guess Drive to Survive pretty much all wrapped up.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you'd like to discuss this week? I think obviously we still have a couple of weeks until the next race, so we still have to do our like made up dream track / event / GP. We still have to do that. It would be nice to discuss the Massa stuff, especially now that it's not died down a little bit, but it's had a bit more time for details to emerge, which would be pretty interesting. And then also the Max Verstappen documentary as well. I will try and see if I can watch it over the next couple of days, because why not? But it could be interesting for sure.
I know what it's like. I think this is really, really big news actually. Game changing in the Formula One world.
Oh god.
Valtteri Bottas is releasing a beer.
Why didn't we start with that? Like, we would have just sort of centered the entire podcast around that. You could have told me. I don't even drink beer. I'm now interested in drinking beer.
It's I think the picture is him with the sunglasses and the mullet. So he's got a gin as well, hasn't he? He's got a gin.
Yes, he does have a gin, yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's got a beer coming out soon, so that's gonna be interesting. Valtteri Bottas.
Should be good.
Cool. No, yeah, I think overall Drive to Survive, as manufactured and as annoying it can be at times, is good for the sport. It's brought eyes, it's brought behind the scenes, and like you said, it's brought a new way for teams to interact and show parts of the F1 circus to fans and followers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wouldn't be the same Formula One without it.
No, and I think the main thing it's brought is memes.
Oh yeah, some of the memes. It's just a topic of conversation as well, and it's like it's the mark of a new season as well, because obviously it releases like just before testing, so it is like the mark of a new season for sure.
It's the hype for the new season, but no, all good. Thank you so much for listening once again, and we shall see you next week.
Yes, we'll be back next week.
Cool.
Thanks for listening. Cheers, everyone.
Goodbye.